Thank you so much. Well, thank you all for joining us for this session. 45 minutes to cover innovation, growth, technology. No mean feat. I think we're up to it. Firstly, I'd like to say a huge thanks to my panel here for joining us. So we've got Anastasia joining us from DeepKey. We've got Maddie joining us from Lloyds. We've got Liam, Councillor Liam, joining us from Liverpool City Council. And we've got Luca joining us from Art Invest. Thank you so much for joining us. As we know, in our industry, we face a vast landscape of challenges, from sustainability, from social inequality, to the identity of real estate coming out the back of COVID, economic struggles. But whilst these issues affect every stage of the real estate life cycle, we know that there is also opportunity. And the constant innovation and evolving technology that we see unfolding in our industry gives us hope. We are continuing to discover new ways to address these challenges, and the goal is clear. We need to create sustainable buildings, we need to improve user experience, we need operational efficiency, we need a built environment, in short, that is delivering economically, environmentally, and socially. And we're all on this journey. We're all here from investor, occupier, agent, developer. We're starting in different places, but the shared ambition, I think, is clear, and we're seeing that from the stats as well. So just to throw some stats at you, because no presentation will be complete without some good stats. Over 80% of investors recognizing that the importance of environmental and social impact, but less than 20% have solid plans to implement them. We continue to see a huge demand for social and technologically enabled buildings. More than 90% of occupiers recognize this as a critical part of their strategy moving forwards and are willing to pay more for it. We are starting to see the green premium come through. Our research is showing that over the next 5 to 10 years, we will absolutely see that enhanced premium coming through buildings which are net zero. And we're seeing the landscape of businesses shift as well. When you look at the number of AI businesses that are now landing in London, over 70% of AI businesses in the UK have landed in London. You can just see how the needs of occupiers, the needs of companies and their people are continuing to shift, and the real estate will need to shift with it. So technology and innovation isn't an end of itself. These are catalysts that will enable us to shift and address these challenges. And they'll enable us to create new industries, drive growth, build value. But we need to not forget the purpose, we need to not forget the why. So what problems are we looking to solve? What innovation and technology will help us get there, and how can we enable it to be as successful as possible? So I'm going to move into our panel session now, and we'll start exploring this together. We'll have, hopefully, 15 minutes at the end for some questions. So please use Slido for your questions, hashtag LREF23, and off we go. So we'll open up the floor then to our first question, and I'll come to Anastasia first if that's okay. So of all the innovation that's out there and all the technology that's out there in the market today, what's the one that really excites you, and what challenge do you think it's trying to address?
So first of all, thank you for having me here, and thank you everybody to come and listen to our panel today. So talking about technology and sustainability and its convergence, first of all, sustainability landscape is changing today, and the investor challenges are changing. So they all, or most of them, admit that the disclosures are focused on sustainability more and more. The data is changing, so the occupants are looking at the buildings that feature the sustainability more and more. The behavior of and decision-making of the occupants is changing. They're looking for more sustainable, more green building, inclusive building, and inclusivity of the building space specifically plays an important role in their real estate decision-making. And if we look at the sustainability as a whole, it's now quite big and expanding every day. The topic becomes bigger and bigger, and it covers physical, social, and ethical structures around us. So the main drivers in ESG and sustainability, specifically for real estate, are of course regulation. So you all know about these new disclosures and requirements are changing almost every year, if not more often. Then it is access to the capital. So now it's really difficult to get access to sustainable finance without showing or disclosing of your impact on sustainability and ESG. Then it's property value evaluation. Even though there's no standardized methodology yet to measure the impact of climate risk or physical risk and exposure on the asset value, there's already a lot of recommendations and initiatives coming how to assess the impact and how to make the structures more sustainable. And of course, attractiveness of the assets. So what you mentioned in JLL report, that in the next 5 to 10 years, the enhanced premium will come from the carbon net zero buildings in central London at least, but it's similar for other regions and areas. So technology can help with all of that. And the 80% of the standing buildings today will be there in 2050 when we want to achieve net zero, even though net zero itself is quite optimistic term. The sustainability supply value chain is quite new and also evolving. Even if you believe you use sustainable and green building, it's so many other factors in the sustainability chain that impact that. And coming back to all those drivers, so technology obviously can help with all of that. And there can be used high-tech technology to understand the data, to understand the consumption of energy, waste and water, and any other data sources. Machine learning algorithms can help you to calculate your carbon footprint and impact. But also we shouldn't forget about low-tech technology. So how to make sure that we use lifts less, how to make the staircases more attractive so that people use stairs rather than lifts. And all those inclusive features that I mentioned before. And engagement with tenants is also quite important. But data isn't the cornerstone. Mm-hmm. So, as they say, there's a lot of data, but no meaningful information. So how not to drown in that amount of data? So how to use those tools that are there and they talk to each other. That's also quite important. And if you remember pre-pandemic, actually sustainability was just nice to have topic, and after pandemic, almost everybody started to talk about it. And that's where technology plays really important role. And yes, we have a lot of prop tech, climate tech, clean tech, high tech that helps you to calculate your carbon footprint, show the impact on ESG. But there's so many other areas, for example, raw materials, shortage of raw materials, shortage of expertise, extended duration of shipping and logistics. So those also components of ESG, and it's important to look at sustainability as a whole and see where technology can help and understand the value.
You mentioned data quite heavily there, and I know that's something you're really close to. Maddie, I know data is something that you are very close to at Lloyds as well, and there's lots been going on there. Absolutely, of course we do.
I mean, give us data and we can make decisions. No, look, I mean, data is absolutely the foundation for innovation and growth. If you don't have that, you don't have anything. And I was really excited that we're talking about innovation and growth today, because we can talk about challenges, but actually innovation is the solution to challenges, right? And if you look at the data, which we all love to do, you see that the top economic performance in the last couple of years are the ones who've invested into partnerships with other organizations. So you don't have to be data-led as an organization, but you have to understand that collaboration is important and investing in partnerships is important. And where we've done that as a bank, we have innovated and grown significantly. So never let a crisis go to waste. And think of all the crises we've had. We've had COVID, we've had, you talk about the pandemic and what came out of that. we've had inflation, we've had interest rates, we've got the war in Ukraine. But actually, that is the sort of groundswell and groundbed for innovation. And where we've invested in partnerships, so I can sort of chat you through a couple of those, we've absolutely sort of changed the way we work, the way we think about things. And it's all about that collaboration. I think collaboration, we talk a lot about tech, but actually the softer side of it is when you collaborate with people, you innovate. So a couple of things we've done over the past sort of couple of years is we've teamed up with people like Octopus. So I'm sure you've all heard of Lloyds as an organisation, but I run the real estate and housing team, which is more on the commercial bank side, but we also have a massive mortgage book, about 300 billion of it, so not small. But we've done innovation across the board. So we've worked with people like Octopus, and that is using our platform to say, right, if you've got a Lloyds mortgage, how do we allow you access to this, but in a cost-effective way? Because let's be honest, if you look at the consumer out there, they're very concerned about cost in an environment where it's high inflation, interest rates, etc. So Lloyds will bridge some of the cost gap. Octopus will bridge some of the cost gap to make it the same price as a gas boiler. And that's innovation, because as soon as you start seeing those tipping points of consumer behaviour, that's when you start to sort of really move the needle. But you need to make it really straightforward for people as well. So they need to be able to go onto your website, be able to access this. Octopus will provide the air source heat pump. They will provide the people who put it in. So, you know, that is also innovation. How do you smooth processes? You can't underestimate sort of efficiencies and processes that actually drive innovation as well. So that's been really important. And when I look at investment in partnerships that we've done on the commercial side. So I think Next Generation is here today and throwing something, I think it's the drinks party afterwards, which is great. But that was a collaboration between Lloyds, JLL, Homes England, Green Building Council. We all brought something slightly different to the table, but what we've done there is, yet again, we've found a problem, and that's what innovation is. It's finding a problem and trying to fix it. And I think sometimes it can be quite overwhelming, sustainability, climate change. How do we face into this? But find a problem and try and solve that small problem. Don't boil the ocean, but actually small problems and small innovations grow to quite big things. So Next Generation, if you haven't heard of it, it's a framework, a robust framework for, well, it did start with house builders. And the bigger house builders, they all have their own sustainability teams, but this was about bringing it to the smaller, the medium-sized house builders, to people who do residential projects and single developments rather than large-scale developments. And it was just about making it easy for them to understand what sustainability frameworks were supposed to look like, how they get access to financing off the back of that. And yet again, it was taking what we already have. It's not innovating. You don't have to go out big bang and find something new. It's about taking what you had for the larger house builders, making it more straightforward, more simplified, getting the key metrics and taking it to someone else. So there's so many examples of that. I mean, another one that we can talk about is the Green Buildings tool. Yet again, you know, it's actually a really simple tool. But what it does is it allows people, we've analysed, I think, something like 700,000 assets in the UK through the Green Buildings tool now. Our clients, our own collateral that we have in our book, the social housing sector, we bank over 90% of the social housing sector. And it's a really simple tool. You go on and say, okay, how can I make this building more sustainable? But not just that, what's the most cost-effective way to do it? How can I do it quicker? Can I get put in contact with people who will help me do it? So I sometimes think as well, when we talk about innovation, we always think big box, but actually doing the sort of smaller incremental things really make the difference. Like I say, you know, when you have something like the pandemic, you know, a lot of people, you know, they didn't know the future, they didn't know, but it's about getting everything you can lined up whilst you're going through those things so that you can look for the growth when it's going to come. And as I said, through that, we had a lot of support to our customers. So we had C bills and B bills and all the other government support that we were launching through the banks platform. And it was amazing how quickly we learned about developing new processes, new ways of signing things off, how to move things quickly. We had to get that support out to the economy as quickly as possible. So, you know, we've taken all those learnings and we've made our processes more efficient, which means we can deliver growth to the economy because we can make decisions quicker and we can give more clarity.
But there's an interesting point there, isn't there, in terms of how can we deliver that same volume and velocity of change and innovation without the need for that crisis point, right? And that's part of the challenge. Loads of fantastic examples there, thank you. Your piece on partnerships, I'm sure, is relevant to yourself, Liam, in terms of what you've been seeing in terms of Liverpool City Council, the innovation, the growth that you're seeing in your city. Would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, absolutely, because collaboration and those kind of partnerships has to be at the key of it. That's the way that any economy works, and that's very much at the heart of what we're doing as a city council, at the heart of a wider city region. No, it's absolutely great to be talking about innovation, because actually innovation is the cornerstone of Liverpool's economy. If I was to sort of just single out one sector, for example, life sciences in our city is absolutely huge. When we think about the fact we've got one of the strongest clusters of life sciences businesses anywhere in Europe, actually, when you look at some of the big employers like AstraZeneca, Securius, TriXL, for example, some of those kind of key employers clustering together because of the innovation that we have in the city, linked to some excellent universities, the biggest collection of specialist hospitals outside of London, and other big institutions like the School of Tropical Medicine. So some of the things that are being pioneered at the moment around potential cancer vaccines, all the way through to the fact that we're kind of acknowledged as a vaccine hub, not least because of everything that's just come out of the COVID pandemic with the Pandemic Institute that we've been able to pioneer within the city. So, and that's just one of a number of other kind of areas of the local economy I could talk about, whether it's digital, whether it's the film industry, whether it's some of the kind of advanced manufacturing specialisms we've got in other parts of the city. So it really is at the kind of cornerstone of our local economy. I think where it becomes really interesting as well, particularly with this conference, is around real estate. When I look at some of the kind of work we're doing, particularly in what we call our knowledge quarter, of which kind of life sciences is a key component part of that, we've got a really strong collaboration and partnership between ourselves, the universities, and private sector partners to deliver not just grade A office quality space, but in the case of developments like our Spine building, actually a building that's kind of been given one of the strongest wellness accreditations of any building in Europe, actually. And that we know actually is part of the attraction why big organisations like the Royal College of Physicians, like Cash Plus as a fintech bank, have actually wanted to base themselves in that development, because it's not just the fact that they're close to that kind of ecosystem, be it the universities, be it the graduate pipeline and other employers. It's the fact that they've got a really good quality workspace that they're able to kind of work within. And obviously, we're really keen to develop more sites around our kind of knowledge quarter, which is one of the government's announced investment zones, but also other sites across the city. I think probably the other aspect that's worth kind of mentioning from an innovation perspective is we're really keen to look at how we can continue to pioneer different innovative methods right across the city. When I think about some of the things that we're doing on our local transport network, kind of the way that we're kind of using a lot of innovation on our Merseyrail network, which is the equivalent of the tube down here with the sort of new trains we've introduced, whether things like our e-scooter trial that we've been running, which per capita has actually been as successful per use as most schemes in Europe. We're regularly in the top 5 as one of the different ways that people can get around. And then the additional aspects about how we're actually really keen to roll out kind of further high quality, super fast broadband, not just to give our residents and our businesses a competitive advantage, but actually just to play into some of the kind of real key assets we've got within our region. Everything from the Hartrees supercomputer in the south of our region in Daresbury, up to the Hibernia link in Southport in the north of our region, which is one of the key data cables that connects Britain with North America. So really kind of trying to utilise all of those assets that are available to us.
So to play some of that back, I mean, if we're thinking about lessons learned from your perspective in terms of attracting that sort of innovation, attracting life sciences in, it sounds like it's a combination of infrastructure in terms of the workplace you need, in terms of the tech enablement as well. Is there anything else that you've done that's helped to attract new businesses to the area or new industries to the area?
I think it all boils down to that collaboration. It's not just about usual suspects like me banging the drum. Actually, our strongest advocates are the private sector at the end of the day, who are able to kind of advocate for us to actually demonstrate the strength of the sectors within the local economy, but also as well emanating kind of some of those additional strong points about the city and the wider region. Quality of life, for example, you know, kind of the affordability of what's available in our city is really good compared to kind of other elements in this country and abroad, but also kind of the wider kind of package that comes with it. The fact that, for example, we're only 90 minutes from 3 national parks. It's all of those different bits that actually can be a really attractive proposition, but it's even stronger through that collaborative approach when it's the private sector saying it, not just public sector.
It's really interesting, your point there on kind of placemaking, and that being a really key differentiating factor. It's something that Luca, kind of coming to you now, I know has been a really key point on the developments you've been working on. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit more about some of the stuff you've been working on, some of the innovations you've seen, some of your development programs with Artinvest.
No, absolutely. Thank you. I think it's been really interesting to hear some of the thoughts earlier. I think just to put it in the context, Artinvest Real Estate is actually business based in Germany, and we have around 10 billion of assets under management, over 120 projects. Some of them are refurbs of existing historic buildings, some of them are master plans, and we're doing some similar work here in the UK. But more importantly, we as a business invest in PropTech, so we have a venture capital fund, and we're great believers that actually the technology can really help the real estate market. But that being said, I think we're always concerned that this technology and innovation doesn't happen for the sake of technology. That there is always, and I think, Madeline, you put this very kind of eloquently, that it needs to look for a solution. And I think for us that is absolutely key, that actually there is a solution that we're trying to solve with a potential technological fix. A number of examples in history where technology has failed miserably. One of those, I was actually an engineering student when Segway was a thing that was going to change the way we use transport. Unfortunately, that has changed, and the way it's typically described is it was a product rather than a solution. Google Glass is another big example. And it doesn't just come with those small startups that fail. It also comes with big companies that actually are not able to see what is the solution. And I'll give an example of something that is probably a bit smaller, because I completely agree. We can try and solve the world's problems, but I think we need to start at something that is actually manageable and it's dealing with a particular issue. So the way we look at innovation in real estate world is, we first look at the customer or the human. So essentially, what is it there that could change the way we use buildings? So that's the first question. The second question is, how can we change the real estate, the physical real estate, to address that? And then what technology part can play in that to make it a real success? And maybe the technology becomes the ultimate innovation, but actually the journey of thinking about the customer, the real estate, and then figuring out what is needed to enable all of that. So a good example is we are actually working on a larger project at Canada Water, which is Dockside. It's part of a wider master plan. And actually there is a tour tomorrow for those of you who want to attend the tour. And essentially what we're looking there, and this is a really good example, we're actually trying to see how we can change the use of the ground floor from, historically we use the ground floor as a big reception where you kind of clap your feet through the office, you walk by security and you go to your floor. We think that 2 to 5% of the net area of the building can actually be used as amenity. Now, we first have to understand what do we need to provide for the customer, and we think that amenity, whether that's a food hall, kind of a civic space, somewhere where you can actually spend a bit of time. You then think about, okay, so what is it that we need to change at the ground floor? Well, we can't have a revolving doors if we're trying to achieve that. We need to have maybe a bit more permeable ground floor, so maybe a hangar doors that are open, invite visitors and occupiers to it. It feels a bit more welcoming. And then you ask, well, so what can technology do there? Well, we'd like to think that, the security guards typically are the ones that kind of put people off. Revolving doors and security guards are probably the people that put off people from walking into an office building. So, if we can find a technology that is really, rather than a QR code that never quite works, if we can find a technology that actually doesn't put people off, actually invites people into the building, technology is there to actually secure the building in a way that, you're not invited to go to the upper levels, because that's where the business happens and it's only for the specific visitors and the employees of the business. But actually technology could be there, a hidden security guard that actually invites people, but also does the purpose of. So I think for us, that is a really important aspect, that technology and innovation addresses all these 3 points for it to be really successful. Otherwise, we end up with a number of technologies that basically don't lead us anywhere. And I think MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, has done a research, and about 95% of all new technologies fail. And one of the main reasons is it's a technology rather than a solution. And I think that's something that we should really focus on.
That's really helpful. I mean, that digital ID capability for that touchless security journey, I think, is something that a lot of different companies, a lot of different assets are looking at. I think it's fascinating, if a little bit scary, maybe.
Yeah.
You kind of mentioned there about technologies that pick up and then get dropped, and I think that's really important when we think about starting small in terms of how we innovate as well. Two big technologies that are out there at the minute, obviously, and we're all continuing to think about how we might leverage them. Generative AI, so ChatGPT, and also the metaverse. And I know the metaverse was something we were talking about probably more a year, 2 years ago, but continues to rumble on in the background. I'll throw this out to the whole panel. I don't know who might want to pick this one up, but any particular views in terms of either of those two technologies and how we might best leverage them in real estate going forwards?
I know I use ChatGPT for my son's homework, which frees me up to be more innovative at work. So there we go.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think from my point of view, again, this collaboration, whether it actually happens at the company level or it happens at the human level, I think one of the biggest challenges is actually how do we reimagine the office space so it becomes a place where you're essentially stimulating people to think, about a problem. So place for intellectual stimulation. And I think that the role that AI can play is essentially a process that can, speed up a lot of these admin processes that you actually will spend a lot of time doing, but actually the AI is probably better at doing that job than you are. But I think that frees up the time for that collaboration piece where you can come into the office and do your intellectual stimulation with, whether it's a company level or individual level, that's how we improve efficiency in the real estate, in the, let's call it white collar industries and the knowledge sector. Because when you go to the industry, you have a technological innovation, something gets built faster, problem solved. With our jobs, typically, the slow bit is actually getting to a solution. And I think if you can actually free up the time through AI to allow you to spend more time with your colleagues to actually work on a particular problem, I think it's got a great role to play. But yeah.
I mean, look, there's absolutely something in terms of, if you look at big organizations and decision making, we try not to be, let's be honest, but we are inefficient. We get information in from, say, our client. I'm talking on my basis now. We analyse it, we send it off to our credit team who analyse it, and there's always handoffs. And if you could automate all of that, so it just goes straight through, and to your point, you're making a decision based on risk or growth or innovation, rather than wasting 3 days putting a pack together to be able to present it, then that's absolutely got to come to the forefront. But I do, we have innovated quite a lot, I'd say, with that decision making at the sort of more consumer and smaller business end. People still want a human to make a decision. I think that's unbelievably important. So if you automate it too much, you lose that connection with your clients. We keep talking about collaboration, partnership. So it has to be done to do, I suppose, the grunt work, but not the decision making. That's the absolute key to it.
I think you mentioned people being at the heart of it. I think that's absolutely right. I think there's the skills element as well. Yeah. In terms of we need to make sure that we've got the right skills in place for people who are able to know how to innovate and know how to use these technologies and have the space created. And we said about having the space there to think about what these solutions are. I think skills are such a key part of where this is all going. I don't know if there's any views from you all in terms of how we can best enable those skills and that growth for our people to help pick that up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I keep going back to the same point, but I do think it's really relevant talking about collaboration again. So we're talking about skills. We're one of the lead sponsors in something called Regeneration Brainery. And we spend a lot of time and, our own personal time, but also investment. I know we've teamed up with Liverpool Combined Authority to do digital skills, for example. But Regeneration Brainery is about bringing school children and people at university into our industry and teaching them skills. And, you know, no one, I think, is at school going, God, I'd love to be a real estate banker. Well, I mean, I definitely do. But actually showing them, you know, what we do, going on site visits, this is exciting, bringing them in, teaching them the skills. Because actually, to your point, innovation skills, you can be in any sector and have innovation skills. But it's about bringing it to everyone, making sure that we have social mobility as well, because one of the big things that we're finding is social mobility is actually decreasing. So it's how do we get skills to everyone in the country, not just, you know, a top tier of people who understand what business is. You know, that's the bit for me. It's about social mobility as well as skills.
I agree entirely with that. And I think that's where there needs to be a bit more of a conversation about devolution on these kind of things. Obviously, kind of elements of tertiary education are being devolved to a more local level, but there's a really important role actually at a more local level to have a bit more involvement, particularly in schools, and how that's kind of linked through with the local economy as well, so you actually get a bit more of a kind of a seamless thread in all of that, because that's crucial in terms of the labour market pipeline. But let's also put in human terms. This is about enabling our kids to have the most kind of strong careers that they can have and the most fulfilling lives that can come from that as well. So I think it's probably a conversation about this can't just be one national, one fits all. There's huge opportunity to innovate at a local level.
Thank you.
And if I may add, because it also relates to a previous question about using metaverse, we touched base AI, which again, generative AI is not just ChatGPT, it's much broader. Indeed. But metaverse and skill set and expertise, so it's also internal engagement within the building, engagement between the owners, but also with tenants, and how we can share any gains and achievements, and even bring some gamification element to it, and also arrange even hackathons. You know, there's a new theme currently that actually different buildings and different teams in the buildings do hackathons aimed for sustainability solutions. So again, it's all about collaboration. And metaverse can be a really great tool for that.
So it's a good example of the metaverse. We've got something going on actually right now at JLL. We've got our different diversity networks meeting as we speak in the metaverse. You know, because you know that way we can bring everyone together nationally, you know, in that space, and it just creates different sorts of interactions, and it just keeps diversifies the kind of Teams and Zoom fatigue that we've all experienced. We've got some questions coming in. We've got 10 minutes left. Thank you for submitting those through. You know, we're in the tech panel and we've got 2 iPads going, so here we go. A question here from Sam Markey. What help do real estate leaders and city authorities need to be more confident customers of innovative solutions? Great question. Can I bring you in there, Liam? Yeah,
you certainly can do. I think, again, it's just that opportunity to sort of be able to kind of do things a bit differently, where we're kind of hopeful around our investment zone. That can potentially kind of give us greater sort of autonomy to try different things out. I think there's obviously kind of bigger questions around the whole planning system and how you can make that more effective but still do it in the right kind of robust framework as well. But I think there's just a lot of opportunity to potentially kind of innovate things in different areas.
My sense, the starting small element that you brought in earlier, Maddie, as well, I think really helps there. You know, it always helps to start these things with a pilot and then expand from there rather than going big bang all in, is my sense.
Yeah, I mean, my favourite saying is always fire bullets, not cannonballs, which I reckon sounds really aggressive. You don't have to fire anything. But, you know, it's bit by bit. You know, I always think you underestimate big change by doing incremental change lots and lots of times. If you think about, you know, we might not get onto it given we're sort of running through already, but you know, if you think about what's happened in the retail market, what's happening to offices at the moment, what's happening to stranded assets, people are like, oh, big change. And I genuinely think, apart from the pandemic, which really was a one-off big change, you know, these things actually do happen slowly. Like, you know, it took ages for hybrid working. You know, hybrid working was coming and people understood it. Sustainability has been coming. Even interest rate rises, people are like, oh God, that happened overnight. No, it didn't. There was 14 consecutive interest rate rises, right? So I often think about innovation and change is you have to think about it in, fire bullets. So try things out constantly to adapt. And the things that work, and I think this is where actually banks have a real role to play, which is we see such a broad spectrum of the economy. We should be able, we're not advisors, but we should be able to sort of be able to take learnings from lots of the different aspects that we see and then be able to say, okay, this might work, this will, hopefully work. And I think when you team up with local authorities on housing, on life sciences, on innovation, on universities, we've got great universities in this country, and we've always managed to adapt. Right, that's the other thing, glass half full. I really love positivity, which is we'll find a way to adapt. It might be bumpy along the way, it's always bumpy along the way, but just try things out. And it's not about trying to understand the probability of something, because no one's going to understand about that, but it's about, is certain situations plausible, and are we prepared for them, and how do we get ourselves prepared for them? And if you use times where people, for example, in the real estate market, it is a bit slow at the moment, transaction volumes are down. Okay, well, use that time to prepare yourself to innovate on those different aspects of what might happen. Not everything's going to happen, but what might happen, and then you'll start to see that growth because you're prepared.
But also it's a cultural change, it's adoption of technology. Because with this question, I'm sitting on the other fence. We're a technology company. And it's, also fear of your people when technology comes. It's fear that they will lose jobs. So it's about how it actually helps. Actually, they will free up their time to do more elevated, more intelligent jobs rather than manually processing data again and understanding trajectories and impact and so on. So it's also cultural shift that where we can, as technology companies, we can help and work together and educate.
Thank you. Another question here from Dan Jessico. This is about the residential market, and thank you for raising that, because obviously we focus quite heavily on the commercial market here so far. Question is, how do we use data and innovation to drive energy and carbon performance improvement in the mortgage and owned outright residential sector?
Gosh, that's a tough one. So
it's a big question.
It's a big question, and there's lots of things you can do. So, we've got obviously a large mortgage book, large consumer book, and you could ask them all for their energy bills and go through it. Now that would take a lot of data processing, and if anyone's got some tech solution for that, that would be absolutely brilliant. But most people don't want to share data. They're like, that's really difficult, and it's taken quite a while for us to shift mindsets on things like, if you give us card data, we'll be able to analyze things better so that we have better shops in your area, so that you can, if you have to travel half an hour to get to a Marks and Spencer's, but we know that there's a need in your community. So it is cultural as well. It's about persuading people to use it. But in terms of the residential, honestly, blunt tools, they're not great, but the green building tool at the moment is absolutely fantastic. But I think they said it in the last session, tax breaks is incentivizing people to do it, because at the moment, people just sit there and go, well, it's cheaper to have a gas car, it's cheaper to have a boiler. It's about the more we can get that data in, have simple tools that allow them, and then have tax breaks or incentives, or as we're doing with the Octopus, make it easy for people to adapt. That's got to be the way forward.
I think for me, I think it starts with a cultural change. Essentially, that people start really appreciating that they're doing something good for themselves and for, people coming up after them. So I think that's absolutely key. I think then the education piece, which is really about actually understanding, how can you do things better? Because if people don't understand how can do things better, they won't. And then finally, incentivizing. And I think those three, if you take the cultural shift so that people really kind of believe in something and it becomes something that, you really are striving for, you educate and then you incentivize. I think those three kind of, looking at the big picture, those three things must be the kind of the way to move things forward.
Yeah, but this is a vital issue, though, isn't it, at the end of the day? A third of our emissions are coming from domestic properties, bluntly. And when we think about the kind of the existential threat of the climate emergency, I come from a city that's on a big river, virtually coastal. We're at huge flood risk because of sort of global temperature increases. That's the same here in London as well, and other parts of the country. So we do have to sort of deal with this. We can't delay it. And actually, when you think about kind of how we empower that conversation around sort of domestic energy bills, for example, I don't know anyone who particularly enjoys paying their energy bill. They want it to be much smaller. So if there is the ability to kind of empower people with smarter solutions of how you use less and save money, that's absolutely vital. But the key thing is that incentivisation, because crudely, a lot of these kind of solutions cost more money at this moment in time because they've not achieved that mass market status yet. But actually, this is where government's got a huge role it's got to step into, because we can't delay this issue.
And I think that same point around getting the business case to stack up isn't just a residential issue. It goes for every building going, particularly when we're looking at the volume of real estate that will still be, here is already built through to 2050. Those business cases, cost of construction, cost of the technology, the values of real estate as well. All those elements need to balance out in order to make this work. So, a big enabler and a big challenge to overcome there. One last thought from each of you whilst we've got 2 minutes. What would be the main block you would see to innovation and technology moving forwards, and how would you solve it? So a very quick 30-second idea each. I'm going to come to you first.
Yeah, so I would say there are 3 big challenges. So it's sustainability value chain expertise. We discussed a lot and we touch base it. And second would be processes and workflows that encourage collaboration. Again, it's still a blocker, so, and we discussed a lot today what we can do about it. And finally, data intelligence. So it's finding the tools that can help you to get meaningful information out of all the data that is out there. So that's my input.
That's your top 3. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think the biggest challenge is inertia. I think people are so overfaced by it, they don't know where to start. But we've discussed time and time again, start small, keep going. In fact, the energy watchdog, World Energy Watchdog came out yesterday and was like, actually, we're really positively moving on quite a lot of stuff, but the thing that he's worried about is international cooperation. So if in doubt, collaborate, cooperation, that's the other thing.
Fantastic. Liam?
Yeah, I wouldn't see it as a blocker. I'd see it more as an opportunity, because it's collaboration. That's the key bit in all of this, because actually when we all come together, we come up with better solutions that are more effective and efficient for everyone. And 9 times out of 10, most people want to do that. So I don't see it as a blocker, but it's something we've got to do a lot more of.
Thank you.
And actually, maybe if I bring it to more of a kind of a real estate level, I think if we can, I think offices are a real challenge now, reimagining, what work is all about. So again, thinking about those spaces and creating spaces that enable that intellectual stimulation, which then leads to better collaboration and better outcomes innovation. I think for me, thinking about that, how can we bring people back into the office, and how can we make it a place where you don't go to spend time on your computer, maybe the AI does that, and you actually spend a bit more time thinking, collaborating with others to come up with innovation and clever solutions.
Bring it back to people. Thank you very much. Well, we are in -5 seconds, that time is telling me. So thank you. Huge thanks to my panel for joining us and taking us through some of this, and thank you all for joining us. I think we've covered a lot of good ground there. We've looked at the role of people and skills. We've looked at the role of partnerships and collaboration, starting small, iterating, and the role that we all have to play, the opportunity we all have ahead of us in terms of capitalising on some of these solutions. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.